So before we begin our guided meditation, our longer meditation, we'll take just a minute to contemplate this concept of purification. So purification, we often do this before we begin our meditation, and what it is just a reminder to check in with ourselves, become aware of the contents of the mind, and to see if there's anything there that might be a hindrance to sitting peacefully in meditation or to listening to the talks. So it's not a purification in a moralistic sense, but it's really just getting anything out of the way that might be a block for you. So it could be as simple as, I've had a stressful day, I've had a lot of things to do, and so now I'm feeling a little rushed or a little uptight. Sometimes it could be, I had a disagreement with someone today and I'm still kind of carrying the remnants of that, maybe some sadness or some anger. So we become aware of these negativities that we're carrying in the heart and in the body and the mind, and we find that we actually can let them go to a great degree. Especially in a sacred space like this, and when we know that we're putting them down temporarily, so that we can pick them up in about an hour and a half and start to work on them again in a very wholesome, probably better prepared way. So that's the concept here. So I would just invite everybody to close your eyes for a moment and just be aware of what it is you're carrying, anything that is not helpful, anything that is not useful. It's not a negative self-judgment in any way. It's just, what can I put down at this moment in time so that I can devote myself to the practice tonight? And so if you find anything, you can just put that down metaphorically, but you really are putting it down in a sense. And so with that, I'll sound the bell. And that's our wonderful Tibetan temple bell. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Namaskar, everybody. Welcome. And notice how there is peace. It worked. All right, well, if you want to take a moment to get ready for the meditation practice, we'll go into that. So whatever you need to do to get your body comfortable. And there are lots of extra cushions and mats and blocks and all sorts of things in the closet. So help yourself to any of that for getting comfortable. What Linda's doing there is helpful. If you're sitting in a chair and your feet aren't flat on the floor, sometimes the toes are kind of extended and the calves can be tight. So that can be a helpful thing to just get some comfort. And you can close your eyes. We close our eyes to eliminate the visual distractions. There's not a whole lot going on in here visually, but whenever we look at things, we tend to think about them. So we close our eyes to eliminate those visual distractions. You can check in with your body to see if it is positioned in a way that is relatively symmetrical, so that you're not using a whole lot of muscle strength on one side or another to support yourself, but to have it as balanced as is possible. And then we'll check in with the breath. We just allow the breath to come and go however it wants to. In this practice, we don't manipulate the breath in any way. We just let it do whatever it does. If you're able to breathe through your nose, that will be helpful later on in the practice. But just breathe in whatever way is comfortable for you. Don't feel like you have to breathe through the nose. So with all of that, I will sound the meditation bell, and I'll begin to guide us through the practice. Follow the sound of the bell as it fades into silence. Let the silence be an invitation to turn your senses inward. You may notice how most of the time we have our senses projected outward. We're interested in the world around us, we're curious, we interact with other people. In this practice, it is an opportunity to let go of that habit of the mind and to turn the senses inward. And just take a few moments to become aware of what it feels like to be occupying your own body right now. There is a feeling of presence. There is a feeling of being. And that feeling really can't be described with words, but you can experience it by looking for it and moving into it. Again, occupying it. Developing the sense of presence. And then with this sense of presence established, let's move our awareness up to the top of the head, and we'll focus for a few moments on the area of the scalp. Okay, so just focus on the scalp. And within the area of the scalp, become aware of any physical sensations. So we're not looking for anything magical here, we're just looking for natural physical sensations. Many times they present themselves as temperature sensations. You might notice that the room feels warm or cool or neutral, or that the temperature within your body, as experienced through the scalp, is warm or cool or neutral. Sometimes there's a feeling of air movement in the room. Sometimes there are feelings of sensation on the surface of the skin of the scalp. You might notice a little itch here or there, or a tickle, some sort of a sensation on the surface of the skin. So these are all sensations that you're just opening up awareness to, and you're noticing them as they come and as they go. So as you notice them, there's no holding on to them, there's no pushing them away. It's just observing with bare attention. And as you observe the sensations in the scalp, you may come upon some tension somewhere in the scalp, somewhere in the muscles of the scalp. And if you find tension, our response in the practice is simply to let it go. We just release the tension because it's something that's not necessary at this time. It's something added on to the natural experience. So we let that tension go, let it leave the body. Sometimes I use that image of the butterfly, where if we found a butterfly trapped in our home on a warm day, we might walk up and with great compassion and kindness, we might cup that butterfly in our hands and carry it outside and release it into the garden or the grass or the trees. And we'd probably smile when we let the butterfly go, maybe wishing it well, maybe wishing it good luck. And when we come upon tension in our own body, we should approach it with the same compassion, the same loving kindness, just letting go. And then we can continue to observe the sensations in the scalp as we notice them, just staying focused there, aware. And now from the scalp we can move our awareness downward. See if you can feel the flow of awareness as it moves downward into your forehead. And feel it moving through your forehead into your temples. Feel it flowing further down through your eyebrows and into your eyes. And once again, with awareness in these 4 parts of the body, we simply open up to the experience of physical sensations. Temperature, air movement, sensations on the surface of the skin. We just observe. We also have a tendency to want to kind of name or identify or intellectualize a lot of the experiences that we have. So as we move through the sensations of the body, see if you can just have the experience without the additional thoughts, without the additional intellectual activity. Just have the bare experience, just the experience, without the ideas. Again, encountering tension anywhere in the body, this is something added to the natural experience. And to the extent that it is not needed at this time, we release the tension in the body. Letting it go if the brow is furrowed or if the temples are tight. Letting it go if the eyes are squinted maybe, or the eyebrows are raised. We just let it go unconditionally, and we continue to maintain that awareness of sensation. Maintaining that continuity of awareness. And now from the temples we can begin to guide the awareness downward into the ears. And as you move to each of these new parts of the body, just repeat the process of observing, of releasing tension, and of remaining aware. Maintaining that continuity of awareness. We find it starts to become a very seamless, very automatic flow. From the ears, we can bring the awareness forward into the face, moving through the cheekbones. Feel it spreading through the face, this feeling of awareness. And then from the eyes, let the awareness flow down through the nose. Feel it passing through the lips and mouth and chin. And in these areas of the body, just be aware of the sensations. No judgment. No need to name them. No need to evaluate them. There's also no sensation that you're required to be feeling. And there's nothing that you shouldn't feel. It's just whatever is true in this moment for you. And any tension you discover, just release it. You can check in with some of the areas where we habitually hold tension, with the jaws maybe. Sometimes the teeth are clenched or the lips are pursed, or there's just tightness in the muscles of the face. And so finding this, we just release. We release. And we continue to observe the sensations in the face. And now from the chin, we can begin to guide our awareness downward into the neck. Really see if you can feel that soothing flow of awareness as it moves from part to part, down into the throat, and from there moving through the sides of the neck, and then moving into the back of the neck, aware of the sensations, and just very automatically and freely letting the tension go, letting it leave the body. And sometimes we smile softly as we let go of the tension. Now from the neck, we can begin to guide the awareness downward into the shoulders. Feel it spreading throughout the shoulders, aware of the sensations of temperature and air movement, and sensations on the surface of the skin. And here in the shoulders, we might notice the sensation of contact between the shoulders and the chair or the floor, or it's possible we'll notice the sensation of contact between our skin and our clothing. So these are all sensations of the body to which we bring awareness. And if there's tension in the shoulders, if they're shrugged at all, just let them drop. Continue to observe the sensations. And then from here, from the shoulders, we'll guide the awareness downward into the upper arms. We'll spend a little time looking at the different parts, beginning with the biceps. And what are the sensations in the biceps? Is there tension? If there is, just release. Moving inward to the inside part of the upper arms. What are the sensations? Release tension and move around to the triceps. Once again, what are the sensations? And we ask these questions not so much to give an actual answer as to just bring awareness to what is true in the sensations of the body. So we're attentive, we're curious, and we're interested as we move through the body. And now moving to the outer surface of the upper arms, all the way from the top down to the elbow joint. And then you can start to feel your awareness flowing through the elbow joints. Feel it flowing through the forearms and downward. Feel that awareness moving toward the wrists. And as I name these parts of the body, just continue with that practice of observing sensation and letting tension go. Just a very simple practice. Moving down through the wrists now. Feel that flow of awareness. Moving into the hands. And once in the hands, we can observe the different parts. The heels of the hands. They have their own sensations, different from the palms of the hands, experiencing the sensations there. You may even notice a feeling of perspiration on the palms of the hands. And we move around to the tops of the hands. Begin to feel awareness moving through the thumbs and fingers. Feel that awareness move all the way down to the tips of the fingers and the fingernails. And let's just spend a moment here focused on the fingernails, aware. And sometimes after a few moments of observation, we'll notice some very subtle sensations in the fingernails. A very faint pulsation or tingling or a feeling of energy. So as we move through observing these sensations, whether they're gross or subtle, we begin to refine our ability to focus the mind. And now from the fingertips, we will bring the awareness up to the top of the chest. Try to maintain that continuity of awareness as you move. And you can begin with awareness spread out through the collarbones. And then allow the awareness to begin to pass downward through the chest. And feel it moving through the tissue and the muscles of the chest, all the way down to the base of the sternum. And then once there, feel it flowing outward through the rib cage. And you're just aware of the sensations and always releasing the tension as you discover it. There's no need to respond to negativity, to the tension of the body. It is very much a habit, and so when we encounter it, we just let it go and we smile that we are setting the body free from tension. Now we can guide the awareness to the underarms. Focus on them for a moment, the sensations of the underarms. And then begin to guide that awareness downward through the sides of the body. Feel it moving, moving. Feel it illuminating the sensations all the way down to the waist. Let go of the tension, and then bring that awareness forward into your belly. Feel the sensations in the belly as it rises and falls. You'll notice that moving with the breath, expanding and contracting, rising and falling. And if there's tension in the belly, just let that go. Let your belly relax, let it hang freely. Continue to observe the sensations around the belly. You'll notice that every time you let go of tension, what remains is an increased peacefulness in the body and the mind. Now from the belly, we will maintain the continuity of awareness as we move around to the top of the back, starting at the base of the neck, and we'll just move that awareness downward through the upper third of the back. Feel it moving through the shoulder blades. Observe the different sensations. Let that tension go. Move the awareness a little further now down into the middle third of the back. Observe and release, and then move down into the lower third of the back. Just observe and let go. And sometimes it's common for many of us to experience sensations of discomfort in different places of the body. The back is a place where many of us experience that discomfort, or these unpleasant sensations of fatigue or pain. And sometimes those unpleasant sensations can make it difficult to observe the sensations objectively, because there's an emotional charge to the pain. It can make it difficult for us to release the tension, again, because there is an emotional charge around that pain. Now what we discover is that in the freeness of this meditation, in the expansiveness of our own awareness, we discover that there is more than enough room for these sensations, difficult as they may be. There is more than enough room for these sensations to be just as they are. And we find that we do not need to react to them with negativity, that we do not need to react to them with aversion. We do not need to suppress them. We can simply allow them to be as they are, just letting them go. Moving down through the lower part of the back now, moving downward further. Feel your awareness moving into the sit bones. Feel it moving through the hips and throughout the pelvis. Become aware of the sensations anywhere in these areas. Many sensations in the pelvis. If there's tension anywhere, again, just release. And then from the pelvis, we'll let the awareness move downward into the thighs. Start to feel it moving downward into the thighs. Again, if you observe the movement of awareness, there is a very soothing quality to the flow as it moves from part to part. So in the thighs, let's observe for a moment the top surface of the thighs, the sensations we encounter from the tops all the way down to the knees. And then we rotate outward a bit to the outer surface of the thighs. Again, just observing, these are the sensations. And noticing any tension, we just release. And then rotating under to the underside of the thighs. Observe, noticing the sensations. Observing and letting the tension go. And then we move once again to the inside surface of the thighs, from the tops all the way down to the knees. Every part of the body is observed with an attentive awareness of sensation and a compassionate release of tension. And now we guide the awareness down through the knees. We feel it as it continues to move downward into the calves. I feel it moving into the shins as well. Noticing these different sensations without overthinking them. Just letting the tension go. Compassion, smiling. Moving the awareness through the shins and downward. Feel that awareness flowing into the ankles, illuminating the sensations and giving you an opportunity to let go of the tension. And then from the ankles, we move downward into the feet and observe the heels. The sensations there, and then move into the soles of the feet. The sensations are very different. You may notice moisture or perspiration. Observe the balls of the feet, and then move the awareness around to the tops of the feet. Sending it down into the toes. Just observing. Any tension you discover, the response is just to release it. Let go unconditionally. Moving the awareness into the toenails. Focus on the toenails for a few moments. Keeping your awareness very subtle, very focused and attentive. See if there are any sensations in the toenails that you can detect. And sometimes there is just a faint pulsation, a faint tingling or buzzing. We observe the sensations in the toenails and we let the tension go. And there is often a feeling of real well-being and peacefulness as we move through the body in this way. This is the practice of samatha, which means calm, abiding. And one of the natural byproducts of this calm, abiding practice is an organic joyfulness, just a natural peacefulness and sense of well-being that comes from within. So enjoying that pleasant state as we experience it, we'll move our awareness one more time up to the top of the head and to the area of the scalp. We'll focus again here on the sensations, but this time at your own pace you can begin to guide your awareness back down through your body. The goal is to move through each part though, systematically, trying to move through in about the same order that we did together. At your own pace you can do this, and you find that you can do it more quickly if you'd like, or slowly. Some people like to flow through with a faster pace, where others like to move through part by part. But the objective is to be aware once again of the sensations in each part of the body, and also to be aware of the tension in each part of the body. What we often discover is that tension has kind of crept back in certain areas. Places where we let it go a few minutes ago, and it's kind of reestablished itself in the jaws or in the shoulders or in the belly. Could be any part of the body. But noticing this tension, anywhere we discover it, we release it again. And what we know about the tension of the body is that it arises as a response to difficult emotions. We call these difficult emotions kleshas. They arise as a result of things that stress us out or make us angry, or things that cause us to be worried or fearful. These different events occur throughout the day, or sometimes they're just brought about by thoughts themselves and nothing else. And the result is this tensing of the body, this holding of tension in different parts, often the same parts habitually. So as we become aware of it in this deep meditative state, we can let that tension go with full awareness. And in this way, we begin to erode these habit energies in the mind. We begin to let go of this tension in such a way that it will not return. Sometimes it won't return at all. Sometimes it will return, but with less rapidity or with less intensity. So aware of tension in the body, our response, our practice is just to release it over and over, over and over. Set yourself free. Smile to yourself. And now let's all bring our awareness together up to the base of the nose. And we'll focus to begin with on the little patch of skin beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. Focus your awareness here, and then you can expand the awareness a little bit further to include the rings of the nostrils. And then you can expand the awareness just a little bit further to include the nasal passages as well. So now we have this triangular area of the nose, and we have our awareness focused here. And so let the awareness be completely aware of the movement of the breath in and out through this triangular area of the nose. Again, be interested, be curious, and observe the movement of the breath So much so that as you breathe in, you know that you're breathing in. And as you breathe out, you know that you're breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And as you breathe in, try to stay with the full duration of that in-breath, following it as it begins to slow and pauses momentarily, and then it becomes the next out-breath. And so you follow that out-breath for its full duration as it slows and pauses, and it becomes the next in-breath. Here we find another use for this continuity of awareness, the ever-moving, ever-changing breath. As you follow the movement of the breath in and out, you can open your awareness to the feeling of touch anywhere in the triangular area of the nose. There's a feeling of touch as the breath moves in, a feeling of touch as the breath moves out. And as you follow the breath and observe the feeling of touch, you may start to become aware of more subtle sensations within the breath. So breathing in, for example, you might notice that the air feels a little cooler. And then when you breathe out, you might notice that the air feels a little more dry. When you breathe in, the air feels a little more moist or dry. When you breathe out, the air feels a little more moist. Breathing in, the air is cooler. Breathing out, the air is warmer. So just be aware of these subtleties of the breath. And let this completely fill your consciousness. Just stay focused on it. Movement of the breath, touch of the breath, sensations of the breath. Stay with it. Follow it in. Follow it out. Sometimes as we follow the breath, we will discover that our awareness has momentarily been pulled away by different distractions. Oftentimes in the form of sounds, we'll hear cars going by outside or noises in the building, and the awareness is drawn from the breath to those sounds for just a moment. If you discover that awareness has been pulled away by a sound, this is a wonderful and very important moment to just bring your awareness back to the breath. This is the practice. Rather than letting the mind wander, following sounds, we bring the awareness back and refocus on the breath. And we refocus on the breath. And sometimes distractions come in the form of sensations in the body. You might feel a little fatigue. You might feel a little discomfort or an itch. Or sometimes there's a feeling of drowsiness. If you notice the awareness has been pulled away, what we do is bring the awareness back to the breath. Just focus again on the nose, on the movement of the breath, on the touch of the breath and the sensations, and really try to cultivate that quality of being interested and attentive. Staying with the breath, coming back to it over and over again as often as you need to. Sometimes the mind will wander away, and then we'll discover that we're lost in thought, or we're remembering or planning. And again, this is just another wonderful moment, an opportunity to train the mind by returning the awareness back to the breath. Focusing again on the movement of the breath, the touch of the breath, and the sensations of the breath. all within the triangular area of the nose. And you'll notice that no drastic action is required, just a simple, very gentle returning of awareness to the breath. Do this over and over as often as you need to. There's no limit to how often you can do it. And just reestablish that awareness over and over, strengthening the mind, freeing the body. Now let's share a few minutes of silent meditation together. Everyone just stay with your breath. Notice distractions and return as soon as you do. Stay with the breath. And in just a few minutes I'll sound the bell to end this meditation. That was nice. Take a little time, everybody. Yeah, get a little movement going back into the joints, and feel free to get up. And
Was I snoring?
Just a couple of times, briefly. But I was able to reach forward and give you a little foot massage, so I don't know if that helped.
Oh, I'm gonna put mine back next to you. You okay? Here we go. Oh, I could've used a double knit.
There is tea in the kitchen if anybody's interested, and I got an air pot. I picked up an air pot last week, so all the hot water's in that, so you don't have to worry about that other kettle thing. So feel free if you want any tea. And there are little saucer plates in there too, so if you want to like bring your spoon and let your tea steep. But we'll take a break for about 1 minute as everybody kind of stretches and gets back into it. Feels very good. As I think everyone here knows, I record our classes each week. I record these meditations in the beginning. So those are included. So if you want to like redo the same meditation that we do each week, you're able to actually listen to that. And so that takes up the first 30 to 45 minutes of the recording. And so if you don't want to listen to it, but you just want to go to the talk, you can fast forward for that period of time to just get right to the talk. So just in case people didn't know that.
Do you do that through your computer, or how do you do that?
I record it here on this little tablet, and then afterward, I load the file onto my computer so I can convert it to a file that YouTube accepts.
Okay.
And then I put it on YouTube. So there's no video, there's just the audio,
Well,
but
that's great.
YouTube requires, they won't let you do just an audio, you have to have at least a picture there.
Okay.
So that's what I do. So usually there'll be a lotus
Okay.
flower of some sort. But yeah, the talks are on there, and so you can get to those by going to the website, www.stillknowing.org. That's our website, and all those talks are on there under Dhamma Talks. So you are free to listen to those as often as you need to or would like to. And I also think it's neat because there's some people outside of this group that have been listening and subscribing to that, and been getting some neat comments, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be able to spread this. So one of the things as we're transitioning here, I'll just mention, is that effective yesterday, I started opening the center every morning at 7 a.m. for open meditation. So it's from 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Everything is set up in here for meditation, and a lot of times you'll find me sitting here meditating, but what it is just an open meditation period. So that if you're up and you want to sit in a place that you're used to for meditation, or sit in a place that you find maybe extra comfortable or peaceful, you just stop in and do it. So that's kind of a tradition of meditation centers. So I wanted to be able to do that here. And then over time I may expand that so that we do it in the middle of the day as well. And then evenings are usually occupied by some sort of a class. So that would take the evening slot. But yeah, feel free to take advantage of it. It's no charge thing. It's just come on in, sit if you want to sit. And you can sit for 15 minutes and be on your way, or you can sit for the whole hour and a half, whatever is convenient. So
Is that 5 days a week or just Monday through Wednesday?
7 days a week.
7 days a week?
7 days a week, yep. I am trying it out for a while, see how that works with 7 days a week, and but so far I'm liking it because that's when I do my morning sit. So
What time again did you say?
starts at 7 a.m., goes to 8:30 a.m., and that's Monday through Sunday. It's all week long. So
7 to 8.
yeah.
Just like tonight.
Yeah, so, but
All day in the
AM.
morning.
Yeah, so just feel
You
free.
don't talk.
I don't talk. However, I'm here. So if you are here and you want to talk about meditation or talk about anything relating to the practice, we just do that in the kitchen. You can have a cup of tea and talk. So
I've been using your tapes in the morning, or your YouTube things in the morning, and I don't know if it's your voice or what, but I just really, I like that.
well, good. Well, hopefully it's the message. Maybe that's what's helping. So. Yeah, but so again, feel free. But yeah, that's a good point. If anybody wants to talk about the practice or what their challenges are or what they're working on, I'd also be happy to do that during that hour and a half period. Because I'm here for that. And so for that, we just go in the kitchen and shut the door. That was one of the reasons I actually wanted to put doors on all these rooms, is so that it would just make it a little easier to do that sort of thing. Or so that people could sit and have a chat out there, other people could sit in the kitchen and have a talk, people could sit in here and meditate, and it would all still work out. So there is that. And in the meditation tradition, those talks, like Mona and I were just talking about, those are often called interviews. In Zen, they call them dokusan. In the Theravadan tradition, they usually just call them student-teacher interviews. But what they are is just a one-on-one for a person to ask questions. Maybe you have questions that you run across on, what do I do about this in the practice? Or what do I do about this when I'm meditating? Or how does this particular issue in my life relate to what we're talking about? And is there anything we can do or suggest? And so it's a way for me to kind of share tips that are helpful for meditation technique as well. So that interview, in addition to that time during the morning, from 7 to 8:30, you're welcome to contact me anytime. And if I'm around, I'm happy to do it. So, so feel free to take advantage of that. Again, that's one of the traditional things that centers offer. So now as we're getting further and further into this, I'm excited to be able to offer these different programs and these different services. So there's that. Tonight, I have another handout. We're going to move into a new topic, but we're still working on the 10 paramis, the 10 perfections. Thank you, Cheryl. So last week we talked about aditana parami, and that's the perfection of determination. And this week we're going to talk about metta parami, the perfection of loving kindness. And I would bet that many of you are already familiar with that word metta. It is commonly used at the end of yoga classes, when yoga teachers will often instruct or do a little meditation at the conclusion of yoga. So you might be familiar with it from that. That's one of our perfections.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Cheryl. I appreciate that. And feel free to turn on the lights if you need a little more light. For reading, you do not have to follow along, but you are welcome to if you'd like. And outside on the table under the bulletin board, there's a little thing of pens. So if anyone ever wants to jot down notes, feel free to grab one of those. Some people are note takers. So we'll start with tonight's subject matter. The ninth of the 10 perfections is metta parami. And I've said this in many of the talks, but these 10 perfections, these are not like really difficult to achieve goals that are way out there, and if you're lucky enough and you work hard enough, you can attain them, and that these will help you reach some level of spiritual attainment. But really what these are is characteristics of your personality, of your spirit, of your heart and mind right now, these 10 perfections, these 10 paramis. And so the practice is really about recognizing that you have them and that they are part of you. They're built right into you. And that once you're aware of them, that you can actually work to cultivate them into greater prominence until they finally become what is considered a perfection. They're just so helpful. They're ways that we perfect our character. So looking at it in that way, not something hard to achieve, just something to notice and work on. Notice and work on. Very simple. So metta, it's a Pali word. It's usually translated as loving kindness, but it is also just as accurately translated as goodwill. And then according to the teaching, metta is perfected by aditana, just as aditana is purified by metta. What that means, aditana was the previous perfection. It means that the strong determination that we bring to our practice helps us to cultivate this loving kindness. It helps us to bring it into prominence as a perfection. And aditana, the strong determination, is also purified by metta. So you can have strong determination to do something, but for example, maybe a thief has strong determination and really has his eyes on someone's purse that got left on a chair in the airport. And so there's a real strong focus, a real strong determination. So what is also necessary in strong determination is this loving kindness or this goodwill for it to be a perfection, for it to be something that helps us. In addition to being one of the 10 paramis, metta is also one of the 4 Brahma-viharas, which are karuna, which is compassion, metta, again, loving kindness, mudita, which is appreciative joy, and upekkha, which is equanimity. So metta, being both a parami and a Brahma-vihara, serves to illustrate the important role that metta plays in Dhamma practice. And just a reminder to everyone throughout, feel free to ask questions, feel free to share comments or experiences. I love the dialogue. I think everyone benefits from it.
Ken, what is Pali? What does it mean that it's a Pali word?
Pali is the language that was, by most scholars, they say that the Buddha and those who lived in northern India about 2,500 years ago, that was the language of that place and that time. So the 2 most common languages we hear about when we study Buddhism or Dhamma or any of this are Pali and Sanskrit. Sanskrit is used a little more in Mahayana teachings like Zen, whereas Pali is used more in Theravadan teachings like we focus on. But really there's no disagreement in any of these words. You could almost just say it's sort of like the United States where there's a little different accent and a little different, colloquialisms in the north versus the south. So, the Sanskrit word for metta is Maitri. So if you read Thich Nhat Hanh, you'll see Maitri. That's the Sanskrit version of it. So either one is appropriate. And now, both of these languages, it's not necessarily a real accurate way of saying it, but they're a little bit like Latin is in that they're not so much a vibrant spoken language now, but they're a language that recorded all these texts. So a little bit of that Latin flavor in terms of their history. So sometimes we get a little hung up on the words loving kindness. I know I used to, because it sounds a little too intimate or maybe a little beyond what we might want to offer to people we don't know very well. And so everybody's at a different place on their path. And sometimes loving kindness just feels like, yep, natural, I've got no problem with that. Loving kindness. Other people, they back off a little bit from that. And sometimes there's reasons for that. You can feel like loving kindness, like you just sort of throw yourself into loving kindness, that maybe that makes you a little vulnerable, because you're kind of putting yourself out there emotionally and you're not sure what the response is going to be. So sometimes people can be a little concerned about that. It can make them reluctant to put out loving kindness. But as we get into this, you find that there's really no downside to this. Really no downside, even when maybe it's not received in the way that we might hope. In my personal life, back when I was a young man, and then back when I was in the corporate world, working in my role there, I felt like, I was pretty convinced that I needed to kind of maintain a pretty cold demeanor in order to be sort of this, I was in the role of chief financial officer for a corporation, and so, it kind of felt like there needs to be this sort of antiseptic, almost coldness, and, so I sort of looked at the opposite of loving kindness, just sort of this cold aloofness. I looked at it as an asset. I looked at it as something that was essential to being an effective manager. And, over time I learned that was really wrong, and it was one of the things that is what makes an ineffective manager, and in many ways an unhappy person. But when I started to learn, when I got into the practice, even then I thought, well, let me work on some of this other stuff. Let me work on the mental sharpness stuff so I can be like a, great samurai soldier with just a mind that's that sharp and quick and tough. And let me get through some of this other stuff, the stress and the anxiety, and then I'll work on the loving kindness stuff a little later on. I kind of put that on the back burner. And what I discovered when I got far enough into the practice that I was willing to try the loving kindness is that it is incredibly transformative. It just changes you from the inside out. It changes your worldview, and it is amazingly helpful in being happy, which of course is why we're all here. We want to be happy. That's the goal. And this delivers that goal. So, transforming the world, one of the biggest leaps forward then in our practice is when we choose to see the world and its inhabitants with goodwill. And by the way, I think I kind of glanced over it, but because loving kindness, sometimes it carries that extra baggage, I'm going to focus more on using the term goodwill. And I'll use that for the talk, just so that it might seem a little less of a stretch for you. One of the biggest leaps forward in our practice is when we choose to see the world and its inhabitants with goodwill. In fact, a complementary relationship between metta, which is goodwill, and upekkha, that's the final of the 10, and we'll talk about that next week. Upekkha, which is equanimity, non-attachment. Those two things together are really life-changing. Goodwill and non-attachment. Goodwill and non-attachment. Using those like two sides of a coin, or using those like wings on a bird. If a bird doesn't have two equally strong wings, it can't fly straight. Or a wagon with one small wheel versus one big wheel, it'll only go in circles. So there's this wonderful synergistic effect when we practice goodwill, metta, and equanimity, non-attachment, upekkha. Here is from the dhamma-vicaya, one of the texts in the canon. With wisdom, let your mind, full of goodwill, pervade 1/4 of the world, and so too the second, third, and fourth quarter. Fill the whole wide world above, below, around. Pervade the world with love-filled thought, free from any ill will, goodwill abounding, sublime beyond measure. So this is the instruction for how we might practice metta. So beginning with a mind that is imbued with goodwill. Let goodwill be the lens through which you look at the world. Let goodwill form the basis for your view, or for your vantage point, for your paradigm, for the way you see the world in general. Let goodwill be the basis for your view. On a side note, right view is one part of the Noble Eightfold Path. So to establish your view with a heart full of goodwill is very helpful. It gives you a big start on the practice of walking on the Eightfold Path. So we're looking at it as, it's almost like if you put on rose-colored glasses in a way, except for we're not doing it in a way that's just sort of blindly optimistic or Pollyannish. But what we're doing is we're saying, I am going to look at the world with eyes of goodwill, and I'm doing this intentionally as a practice. So it's a little different from rose-colored glasses, but we can kind of look at it that way, that, okay, this is how I'm going to start to look at things. This is the way I'm going to practice looking at things. If you're not ready to project loving kindness or goodwill towards someone, as an alternative, as a sort of baby step, just try to project non-ill will. It's a sort of emotional neutrality toward a difficult person or someone you might otherwise hold in ill regard. So this isn't like a phony thing where you have to keep pretending, oh yes, loving kindness, loving kindness, loving kindness. One of the beautiful things about Dhamma is that it's always asking us to be honest with ourselves and to only practice to the extent where it can be true. And if there are areas where we're just not ready, I mean, there's maybe in everybody's life like one person that you really can't say, I'm ready to just offer loving kindness to, you know? And so like that's common to all of us. And so if the practice was, well, just fake it, just pretend you love everybody, you know, that's the religion or something, it's not going to do you any good. You know, it's just going to cause you another problem, because then you're going to feel like a phony, you're going to feel inauthentic, right? So the Dhamma is always asking us, be completely honest. Really look at these teachings and then pick them up and use them to the extent that it's real and authentic for you. So this one is a real helpful kind of baby step in the practice. Some people you might go around and it's pretty easy to just project loving kindness towards them. Some people you might say, no, that isn't happening. And you might discover that with that there's a feeling of actual ill will, of sort of, you know, maybe a real disliking or a projection of ill will. What we discover though is that a lot of times we can kind of soften the ill will part and just kind of be neutral. So non-ill will. Maybe I can't say that I have goodwill genuinely for this person, but maybe I can say I can let go of my actual ill will, or maybe I can let go of some of my hatred toward this person. I might be able to do that. So it's a realistic way of looking at it. It's asking you to be honest with yourself and do that part of it that is real for you. And part of this too is that many of these practices are also just things we do privately. You know, it's not something that we have to like stand up and profess to a crowd and, you know, then everybody's hearing it. But this is, hey, this is me working. This is me working on myself and my life and the things I'm going through. And so there's this real, it's okay to be honest with yourself. And then you'll start to get the better results. So, deep in the Dhamma, even if you're acting from a place of goodwill, and I'll share one of the ways that I do this is just if I'm out and about running errands, and I think I've shared this before with some of you, but if I'm out and about running errands, and so I'm driving my car and I just see someone walking down the street, I will just do silently, just to myself, be well, and I'm aiming that at them, be well. People I don't know, or people, maybe you see them walking up and down the streets from time to time here. But I'll just do that, kind of a silent blessing, be well, I hope you're happy, be well. And that's a real, that's something that I can really feel as I'm doing that. Or maybe you're in an area where you're actually going to interact with people, so now you're not in your car, but you're actually going to be face-to-face with people. And of course, what we know is anytime human beings interact, that it is possible for there to be some disagreement and a little bit of friction here and there. And so one of the things we might practice in those situations is goodwill. If we feel strong in it, we might go into those situations and just, again, silently, our own blessings, be well. I hope you're okay. I hope you're happy. This is what you're projecting out to people, again, silently. If you start to do this out loud, people might not really understand what you're up to, and it could, so then you'd end up explaining things. So it's all done just kind of privately. This is a personal thing, but it's a very powerful practice. But even if you're acting from a place of goodwill, it is possible that some people will not return that goodwill. Some people may respond with negativity. And when this happens, our initial reaction may be to feel hurt or to be angry. But this is a very important moment. If we react with any form of negativity, we are creating new sankharas. Now, last week, I used this word sankharas, and we talked about this a little bit, how there's kind of 4 major functions of the mind. The first is the cognizing part of the mind. So when something makes contact with one of our sense faculties, like your ears, there is sound consciousness, sound cognition. If you touch your pants, there's touch cognition, right? So that's the first faculty, or that's the first function of the mind, is cognizing, cognition, consciousness. The second is recognition or perception. So we might hear something, the initial contact is just raw, brain is aware of something, there's cognition. The second is like an identification. We hear it and you say, oh, that's the bell. Or we hear another sound and you say, oh, that sounds like a motorcycle. Or that's a dog barking, right? So there's cognition, and then there's recognition or perception of what something is. The next part of the mind is sensation. Everything that we cognize, everything that we recognize or perceive, there's a feeling tone that goes along with it. It's either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Probably most of it is neutral, but there are pleasant and unpleasant feeling tones caused by the things that we experience, right? Then comes what is called the sankhara, and that is the reaction to all of that. And you can look at sankharas, and one of the reasons I talk about this a lot is because modern science, psychology, talking about neuroplasticity in the brain, kind of rewiring the brain functions. This is really what was talked about 2,600 years ago in very much the same way that science is talking about it today. That our reactions, as they come up, they start to solidify into habits, right? So we might see someone that we have a negative reaction to because of some words that were said or something that was done. And each time we see that person or think of that person, we're creating a new sankhara, again, a new reaction. That's what that word means, reaction. We create a new reaction, and that kind of strengthens the existing sankhara. We create another new reaction, strengthens the existing sankhara. So that becomes very deeply embedded in our consciousness. What the practice teaches us is that if we are mindful, if we are aware of our states of mind, of the experiences that we're having as we're moving through life, so mindfulness is super important. If we're mindful of it, we can choose not to react in that same negative way. And when we choose not to react in that same negative way, we do not create a new sankhara. We do not reinforce an old sankhara, but we in fact begin to uproot the old existing stock of sankharas, right? So you could almost look at them as just an accumulation of, debris over time, of dust over time. And every time we do something that adds another layer of dust, well, it gets thicker. But if we are aware, we go to the root level where we're actually starting to uproot and eradicate some of these old sankharas. And this is how we really start to change ourselves. Yes?
Can sankharas be their reactions?
Mm-hmm.
And the way you're describing them right now to me sounds like with dust that they're more negative reactions.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's putting a term on there.
Yep.
So what if you have a reaction every time you hear that bell ring, you have pure joy in your...
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I am.
Right.
That's all I'm
So-
gonna say.
So it is safe to look at sankharas as something that is only leading towards some degree of suffering.
Okay.
And that when we aren't reacting with sankharas, what we're actually reacting with is the unconditioned mind, and the natural state of the unconditioned mind is bliss.
Okay.
So does that make a little bit of sense based on what you're talking about?
Yeah, totally.
So
Reactions that lead to suffering.
right,
That
sankharas.
does it.
Yeah, sankharas, the way we use that word, it is unskillful or unwholesome. It involves some degree of negativity, and it's just something that's going to cause us to suffer at some point, now or in the future, oftentimes both. When we don't react with one of those sankharas, but we're just there experiencing it in its unconditioned form, the feeling tone of that is bliss.
In the past, you used to call it habit energy.
Yep. And
Energy.
habit energy, yep.
I got good habits though.
Sure. And-
Loving kindness is a good habit.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But it doesn't lead to suffering.
Absolutely.
So that makes
Right.
sense to me.
Yeah, so all of these, and these are considered, they're not sankharas, these are considered to be unconditioned reaction to things which are joyful, blissful, pleasant, they're skillful, there's no downside to them. There's no hangover. It's just, this is the wonderful experience. So loving kindness, no downside to it, right?
And that's what you taught us last week, was to deal with those the sankharas, by I'm noting that this is happening to me, I release it,
Yeah,
and all its attachments, and move to a center, peaceful, joyful place.
absolutely. Yeah,
And it works really good.
great. Yeah, and it really is that simple in many ways. One of the words, the Pali word for mindfulness is sati, and one of the definitions of that word is to remember. And so that's a big part of mindfulness practice, is just to remember. I mean, most of us are very willing and very ready to do things that are going to help us to be happier in our lives and to have less suffering. But because of these habits, the habit energies, these negative sankharas, we've been reacting the same way, year after year, day after day for our whole lives, we forget. And we just go with the reaction. We go with the sankhara, and it pulls us into this suffering or into this misery.
I remember many years, I don't know, a couple years ago when we were talking about this. I think we looked at it like an infant.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, because an infant is always looking at everything as thrilling and exciting, and the child hasn't experienced anything negative yet. And over time, when that child starts associating certain experiences with negative feelings, you kind of start building up this stuff, like this layer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if we all looked at the world like infants with joy and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we're trying to get back to.
Absolutely. Well, take something that is just sort of a consistent, troubling issue in our society, racism. And this is kind of an easy one to use to explain sankharas. Well, if you're a person that grew up, let's just say in a racist household, and so you were always told that people of a certain race were, not good, right? I mean, this becomes your sankhara. It's conditioned into you, however it got there, it's conditioned into you. What the practice would say is that the unconditioned experience of another person is one that's free from sankharas. So it's just, let me experience this person without these preconceived notions, without any of these old ideas that I'm carrying into it. Let me just have this one-on-one experience. And amazingly, that is just beautiful. You see a lot of people who it's like, oh yeah, I guess we're pretty much like the same people, right? And so we learn from that. So it's a neat thing. It's a neat thing to come upon it. So this is excellent. So we're projecting goodwill. We're being nice to people. We're at work, or at a family gathering, or some public place, or volunteering, or whatever it is, and we're doing our best to project goodwill and just may you be well, may you be happy. That's kind of the mindset of it. Goodwill is, may you be well, may you be happy. I hope you make it. I hope you do okay. Sometimes if there's someone who's got a sign and they're asking for money, like at a stop sign or something, if I have some money and I'm doing okay at that time, and I'm able to give them a few bucks, then I do, and I wish them well. And if I'm at a point where I don't have any money and I can't give them anything, I'll just maybe say, blessings. I hope you're well. So this projection of goodwill. This is how we look at the world around us. So rather than looking at other people as something we're scared of, something we don't like, we're trying to cultivate this feeling of goodwill. And again, if you can't quite get to the goodwill, then see if you can just get to that sort of neutral territory where there's no ill will. And you'll find that feels better. Neutrality feels better than ill will. And goodwill feels better than neutrality. So it's something that you can work on. So if someone reacts to your goodwill with negativity, your next step is to respond with compassion. And this is a little bit of a challenge, but the reason for this is that if a person reacts to goodwill with negativity, that is a sure sign of somebody who's suffering, right? I mean, who reacts to goodwill or kindness with negativity unless that person is suffering? And so remember the 4 Brahma Viharas, we have in them, we have Metta, loving kindness, we have Karuna, which is compassion, Mudita, which is appreciative joy, and Upekkha, which is equanimity or non-attachment. So if you're offering loving kindness and, somebody else responds with negativity or hostility, that's somebody who's suffering. And so then we should go into that practice of compassion. knowing with our wisdom minds that this isn't just a jerk, right? But this person's suffering. And how do I know they're suffering? Because I was offering goodwill and they were negative. So this takes a little maturity in the practice and some wisdom, takes a little remembering, but this person's suffering. So then we move to that place of compassion. So we know they're experiencing pain physically, emotionally, mentally, oftentimes all of those. So by cultivating compassion, we create no new sankharas, we reinforce no old existing sankharas, and in fact we eliminate some of those old existing sankharas, moving ourselves immediately towards happiness and ultimately in the direction of full liberation. One question that often comes up, is there like a one-to-one relationship? So like if I generate a sankhara, and let's say I've generated 10,000 negative sankharas over the course of my life, does that mean I have to catch myself 10,000 times and undo those? Is it like a one-to-one thing? And the good news is no, it's not a one-to-one thing. You can think of it more like a weed that grows up. It's got its roots in the ground, the weed grows up, and above the soil, we might see many little stems and many little leaves of this weed. Well, what we're going to in the practice, we're not just going to picking the leaves off the weeds on the surface, but the practice actually takes us underground to where the root is. And so through this deep practice, we are uprooting, maybe networks of weeds in some cases. It depends how deep we're going, how consistently we're working with this. But it's kind of reassuring for people to know that, no, it's not going to take you, if you're 60 now, you don't need another 60 years to get rid of all this stuff. You'll make huge progress if you follow this practice. Wow. We're at 8:30. This is fun. It's going by so fast. You know what I'll do? Let's just let's leave it here. Let's leave it here because I do have a couple of announcement things I wanted to mention, and so we'll pick it up here, kind of at the lower part of page 3 next week, and then we're going to do a Metta loving kindness practice together. So we will do that. Feel free to read it in advance. A couple of things I wanted to mention in terms of announcements. The fall schedule is pretty much put together. I'm still working with Community Ed to get some other yoga classes that are going to be in here. There's going to be a couple of new instructors. Heather, thank you. Heather Larson. Yeah, Heather Larson, and then another named Wendy Hanslick is going to be a teacher here as well. So those are going to be coming up. But outside, or out in the community room, there's a September newsletter, and I've got what was accurate at the time on the back for upcoming classes. So there's some, it lists the open meditation here, lists our weekly practice group. Going to have a mindfulness-based stress reduction class coming up in September. There's also going to be an intro to meditation and mindfulness in Amory, if anybody knows anybody there who might be interested. And then there's some yoga classes that are listed. So once again, I'm going to be putting out this monthly newsletter, and if you would like to get it, you can just sign up for it out there, and I will email it to you, and you will receive it, and then I'll also keep you posted on any kinds of changes schedule-wise.
You gonna put that in the Amory paper? Announcing the class in Amory?
It'll be part of their community ed. So she's already, Tracy Hendrickson runs that out there, and she's already got that taken care of. So, so that'll be in Amory. And that schedule, it's all on the back of that newsletter. And so there we are, and I'll just mention that there is what I call the Dana box, or what is often called the Dana box out there. So if you are interested in contributing in any way or dropping a donation, feel free to do that. If you're not able to do that, that's wonderful. Please come back no matter what. We're starting to become a real meditation center, so I'm excited to be able to offer options to people. So let's take a moment together before we go. We'll let go of the teachings momentarily. We'll let go of the things that we're thinking about. And we'll just share the 4 Brahma Viharas. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. We don't care who they are. We just want all beings to be free from suffering and its causes. And may all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. May all beings be joyful and happy. And may all beings be equanimous, which is to be free and peaceful without attachment, non-attached, real peace and freedom. And may all of you sharing this space with me tonight, to whom I'm so grateful, may you all be truly, truly happy. Namaskar, everybody. Thank you for coming. It was fun.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
I think we have to recording. Oh, yeah.